welcome. Today's live video is going to be about the Amalfi Coast Mafia Brotherhood series, and this may be a bit of a long one because it is a spoiler-filled video, and we are going to be talking about everything in these three books that just came out. So hi to the Heather Dior, James Charleston Taylor, and Kira the Great for joining, and Catherine, oh great one. Thank you everyone for coming today. We are really going to get into it with all of these books. The series officially ended on, I want to say last month, September 15th, with the release of Forced to Submit. And today we are about 1 month later, we are going to be talking about the entire series. So before I get into it, I normally try to wait for people to come in and to get to the notifications for watching the video. We are going to talk about what came out on Patreon this week and some other details of what's new that readers may want to know. So on Patreon this week, there have basically been the sample chapters of Long Island Executioner all week, and that is book one in my next Mafia romance series, the Long Island Mafia romance series. So if you have not read any of those chapters yet, you can get the first one free on my blog, and then a few more free for Patreon subscribers only. So that has been the majority of what's on Patreon this week. And there are a few more new things behind the scenes that you probably want to know about if you are a reader, and one of them is that these live streams are on YouTube now. I had to start a new channel, Jamila Jasper Romance. I'm going to go delete my old channel, so this is much easier for people to find, but I am just re-uploading these videos to YouTube. So if you don't get a chance, or if it's easier for you to keep up with the YouTube channel, I will basically be posting the videos right away, and all my previous videos are finally live on that YouTube channel. Then we have my new release. I had a new release on October 12th, and that was The Dirty Contract, a friends to lovers romance. That story was a 34K novella, and it seemed like you guys responded really well to it. So if you haven't read it yet, second chance romance, friends to lovers, and it's very, very smutty. The sex scenes are like out of this world. I think you'll really like it if you haven't read it yet. So then we have my next release, and I have another release. Hi, Solo Porn Beso. I have another release coming out this month on October 27th, and that is the Long Island Executioner release. And that is, again, the next Mafia romance series that is up on Amazon, and the link is in my bio on Instagram, and there will definitely be more emails about it. I'm going to do a whole live stream episode just about that book, a pre-launch episode just like I did with The Dirty Contract, and then most likely a launch party on the day when it comes out so we can celebrate the book's birthday. Then this week I also ran a couple polls on Facebook. So if you are not part of the Facebook group today, you can go check it out. It's obviously free to join. I try to get in and accept people right away. If you're not, I think, friends with other members, I have to manually accept you. Hi, Sandra Left Up 6. Thanks for joining. And I was recently running a little poll about small town romance. Hi, Yoli, on Facebook. So if you want to vote in that poll and contribute, check that out. I also was posting on Patreon for anyone who's here from Patreon or thinking of subscribing about needing some ideas for a specific type of scene in a hospital. So if you are on Patreon and you haven't seen that question yet, go check it out. I already have some answers from readers. And so anyone with experience in a hospital setting who wants to contribute, definitely look for that question on Patreon. And then we have, something else new this week. I'm referencing my notes here. That's very exciting, is I finally have hardcover versions for all the books in the Rockstar Romance series. So hi, Kara. So these are not discrete versions, they're just hardcover versions, and I wanted to have them out for all the series from my Rockstar Romance series forward. So that is available now for Seducing the Sadist. I had to make some changes and to get the book live, but it's available now for you to purchase. And yes, I think those are all the notes that I have here about what to get into before we actually talk about the series. And if you hold on. So if you are just joining, hi, we are going to talk about this series and there will be spoilers. So if you've only read, I'm going to talk about the series in order. So if you haven't read the last book, just stop watching after whichever book you have read, and then you won't have to get the spoilers, and then you can come back to the video and hopefully watch the rest when you finish the series. But I am going to talk about them in the order that they're published, so that if you don't want to get spoilers for the future books, you can sign off whenever you are most comfortable. So first, I want to talk about the very first thing that inspired this series. And maybe it's believable. Hi, Jonathan. So maybe it's believable, maybe it's too basic, but it is true, and it's a confession on how the series came to me. So I was at the gym, which is where I spend a lot of my time when I'm not writing, and I was doing cardio on the rowing machine. Now, when I sprint on the rowing machine, I will often pick a pop song for that week that is my sprint song. And that week I picked Upgrade You by Beyonce. And as you know, Jay-Z has a verse on that song. Now, there is a part of the verse where he says, Amalfi Coast beat mafioso. And in my brain, which had no oxygen from my sprint, I was like, yes, Mafia, Amalfi Coast, this is genius. So this entire series was actually inspired by Upgrade You by Beyonce, in which I got the idea to do a specific series on the Amalfi Coast. Hi, Visionaire Art, and hi, Paula. Thank you for joining. So this series was inspired by Beyonce, which is no surprise because I do enjoy listening to a lot of Beyonce's music. Hello, Trale. I don't know if I can get the whole name right, so I'll just say that. So a little more about this series. It's a dark romance trilogy of interconnected standalones. Hi, Sandra. I can't remember if I said hi already. Hi, Fabiana. And there are 3 brothers in an Italian mafia family. So I believe we have the youngest brother is in the middle book, the middle brother is in the first book, and the oldest brother is in the last book. And I wanted to save Matteo for last because I knew this would be my most controversial story as usual. And we will get into that because this episode has spoilers and everything. So this series, they are connected to the Pagonis family in my Greek Mafia Brotherhood series. So if you have not read the previous series, check it out there. I think you'll really like them. They also have brothers, but it's kind of a more Greek vibe than the Italian coastal vibe that I went for here. Hi, Norma. Thank you for joining. So these books, I think, are around 70K words each. There's a little bit of variation. I believe the second one is the longest one, but I can't exactly remember. And the ebook versions are all free in KU, which honestly makes it perfect. If you're kind of like a binge reader who goes from one book to the next, you could like knock all of these out in Kindle Unlimited, probably in a weekend if you are very highly motivated. Jonathan says, I'm in Italy now, and I am very jealous because they probably have much better weather than we have here in central New York. So in terms of the heat levels of these books, they are smutty. I think that can sometimes be a lot, but all of these books I would say are insanely hot. If I had to rank them, I would say book 2, then book 3, then book 1 in order of steaminess, but that's up to you to decide. Which one do you think was the smuttiest, steamiest book, by the way? Let me know in the live stream comments or the comments after the video. I'd love to know your opinion as the readers, because I think something's steamy and you guys were like, what are we talking about? We like the scene with the toes. So I don't think I have a scene with the toes in these, but you can let me know what book you thought was the steamiest one. And all of these books have ebook version. Visionaire Art says the third one. And you know what? I was considering that. And I'm like, no, maybe it was the second. So I appreciate that opinion. You could very well be right, honestly. And these books all have ebook, paperback, hardcover versions. I like the hardcover versions. They are behind me, but I gotta be honest, I broke my shelf. And if I touch any books on the shelf, it will collapse behind me. So for now, we are going to leave it in its semi-chaotic state because I am a very clumsy person and I don't want to mess up the live stream. Hi, Clemmy. Thank you for joining. So this is some general details about the series. We are going to get into each book right now. And so we are going to start with number 1, Forced to Surrogate. Now, friendly reminder, there will be spoilers. I am trying to let you know so I don't surprise you. I literally had to go in and write down my favorite spoilers so we could talk about them today. But let's get a little background here. So, a refresher in case you don't remember everything that happens in all my books, because I have to admit it, I am the same and I forget these details. So, let's get into it. So, in this book, we have Giovanni, Ducas, and Jody Rose. And you may recognize Jody Rose because she is related to Raven Rose, the female main character of Varsity Property, my hockey series. So we have a little connection there. And then Van Ducas is a cousin of the Pagonis family who is mentioned in passing in the previous Greek Mafia Brotherhood trilogy. So the premise of this book, I will kind of explain more when we get into the plot, but essentially Van needs surrogate, Jody becomes surrogate, chaos, hijinks, and lots of natural baby-making surrogacy ensue. That's the general idea. And my favorite part of the book is when Jody wakes up on the beach and realizes where the hell she is, and she's like, I need to get out of here. It's that instinct where you don't even think you know, I'm just going. And she did make her best efforts to get away, but unfortunately, Giovanni really wanted that baby, so there was no hope for her. So let's talk about what was some more things about Jody in this book. So I gave Jody red dreadlocks, which obviously is not represented in the cover, and she was on the curvier side. I had a phase where I really wanted all my characters to have dreadlocks for a minute, and that's why Clover in Powerless has dreadlocks, and also Jody. I just had a phase where I was looking at a lot of hair inspiration for dreadlocks on Pinterest. And of course, it's a natural hairstyle amongst African American people and people of other African descent, like in Jamaica. It's a very popular hairstyle in various Black communities. And so I wanted to have some female main characters with dreadlocks because I didn't do it often and I had a phase of looking at cool dreadlocks online. So that's a little more about Jody's hair. It does not actually have anything to do with the Little Mermaid movie because I only just heard about that recently, but it's a cool coincidence, I guess. So in the beginning of the book and pretty much throughout the entire book, unfortunately, Van and his family do have a very racist attitude. And this is one of the themes I carried through in the book, is that even if his attitude is primarily directed towards the Jewish people in Italy that are their gang rivals, through understanding Jody's perspective, Van comes to kind of learn that basically all racism wrong, not just racism towards people I like wrong. So he kind of has a more evolved perspective throughout the book. And so there is definitely a lot of Van being problematic in the beginning. And we also have here how Van and Jody get together. So we have Cass Pagonis from the Greek Mafia Brotherhood trilogy who helps her beloved cousin get a surrogate. But because she does not like that Van is giving racism, she decides to give him a surrogate that is not how he described, who is a Black woman, Jody. When Jody wakes up and realizes that she has been tricked and captured, she obviously tries to escape, but Van eventually persuades her to stay and become his surrogate in exchange for him paying off her vast sums of student loan debt. This may seem unrealistic to some, but it is honestly the reality of many people that I know, especially women who may be in a similar demographic to our lead main character, who have struggled with student loan debt and who do often fantasize about someone writing a big check to pay it all off. Van is a very wealthy man and dangerous and low-key insane, and so he is willing to do that for the use of Jody's womb. Naturally, he wants her to become a surrogate the old-fashioned way, which is where we get into the smut, the sex scene, the part that we're all here for. Hi to everyone who just joined. I'm just going to keep talking, but I do see you here, and feel free to comment as I'm talking, anyone. I'm going to try to get to everyone's comments if you can say something. So while this is all happening, gotta reference my notes here. There is, of course, mafia drama going on. There is a rat, someone who is betraying the cause, and then, unfortunately, Jody gets caught up in this. There is an attack and Jody has to escape from captivity with Zara, another minor character who becomes the main character in book 3. So Zara is a supporting character in this book, and she is basically going to be with us the entire series. So After being kidnapped, Jody must find a way to escape. She escapes, her and Van reunite, but there's still all of this ongoing conflict between them over how they got together, their feelings for each other, her response to his life in the Mafia, and his response to her powerful, independent spirit. Because despite having come to him in captivity, Jody wants her independence. She's naturally a very independent woman. She doesn't hold back her thoughts and feelings from Van. And so he really struggles with her alpha energy, and he wants to be the alpha because, of course, he's in the Mafia and he is an alpha. So they have a lot of banter between them. And then eventually one thing leads to another. I won't spoil everything. I said there were spoilers, but I won't spoil everything. They eventually end up adopting a child together, Aspen, and then having a biological child, Bianca Rose. And I believe that at least some of the names in this book were picked by subscribers, which is very cool. So this was mainly an enemy to lovers book, a surrogacy book, a mafia book, and of course forbidden feelings, because it's not typical to develop strong attractions to your kidnapper. And I don't recommend it in real life, but if he happens to offer you $300,000 to pay off your student loan debt, maybe anything goes just for a while. So I wanted to read to you guys from this book a little excerpt from chapter 15, and then we can talk a little more about the supporting characters, the happily ever after, and get on into the other books. So this is from chapter 15 in Forced to Surrogate, and the chapter is called Rat Trap, and it is from Van's perspective, and we're just going to read a few pages here. 10 weeks later. So this is 10 weeks after they get back together at some point. An icy foot touches my shin, sending a shiver straight through me and yanking me out of bed. In a panic, I reach for the gun on my bedside table, luckily realizing that it was only Jody's foot grazing me before I turned off the safety and pulled the trigger. Her feet are fucking cold. Something changed the day I gave up working to be with her, to spend the day listening to her reality television theories and her dramatic account of her escape with Zara. I never wanted to stop working for a woman before. I've never been content to handle business from a distance, but I suppose that I must eventually adjust to the position that I want. The boss. I send Enzo and Eddie out to hunt down the Jews. It's easier for Zara to have Eddie far away, driving up the coast, and it's easier for me to have Enzo monitor our nephew. They leave the coast with several captains and enforcers to comb through the Italian countryside. I need Enzo and Eddie together on this job, and I need Jody at home in my bed. I've never felt this need before. You love family. You trust family. You give your family second chances, but I don't trust Eddie anymore. Jody was right that Zara needed to be separate from him, so sending him away only improves her circumstances. She's only 17, but she would make an excellent dancer. Jody refuses to let Zara dance, so I have her waiting tables and collecting tips. Tips. Italians don't even fucking tip, but Zara earns hundreds of dollars a night without undressing. Once the club gets back on its feet, gentlemen fill the bar every night, eager to flirt with the pretty dark girl from America. Now I have to keep her safe from all those bastards too. Jody has saddled me with quite the project. I don't know if she intends to improve my morals or if it all happened by accident. Jody runs her frigid feet along my shin. Fuck. Woman. Van, I'm sleeping. What's the point of trying to get out of bed? I set my gun down and get under the covers, allowing my hands to touch her baby bump. My stomach lurches. That little bump worries me. Jody has all the healthcare she needs, and she obeys my plans for eating, proper exercise, and general upkeep. It's not that. It's knowing my child grows inside her, and that when she's finally done with the pregnancy, we won't have this. Mornings in bed with her icy feet wrapping around me, and then the rest of her. She turns onto her side and nuzzles close to me, pressing the baby bump into my torso. Good morning, Jody, I murmur. You're cold, she complains. The audacity of this woman. She wraps her thigh around my torso and snuggles me like I'm some sort of stuffed bear. Her hands touch my stomach, and I stop feeling so crotchety for a change. How dare she accuse me of being cold? Jody leans forward and snuggles her head into my chest. Fuck, that makes me weak. Her hands stroke my chest and touch my abs, and my cock gets instantly hard. Mornings always end up like this with Jody. The deal was simple. I make love to her until I get her pregnant. Night after night, we end up in each other's arms. How the fuck do we always end up like this? Most of Jodie's mornings since we got back to the villa have been plagued by morning sickness, which doesn't arouse her in the slightest. With Jodie's baby bump growing to a decently sized protrusion, her morning sickness diminishes while her sex drive takes off again. She slides her still freezing toes over my leg and runs her fingers over my abs and down the length of my chest until her eager hands get to my dick. I grunt as Jodie's hand cups the outside of my boxer briefs. She doesn't have to touch my cock this early in the morning. It's definitely not in the contract. But if we don't talk about the contract when we fuck, that makes it okay, right? My cock grows from the mere closeness of her hand. She has beautiful, soft hands with small fingers and a palm that feels fucking delicious wrapped around my dick. She teases me until I'm hard, and I want nothing more than to feel those fucking hands inside my pants. I don't want her to stop touching me. Jodie slips her fingers inside my underwear, and her skin touches the thatch of pubic hair above my growing, throbbing dick. She wraps her hand around the shaft, her hand barely making it all the way around. I grunt again as she takes a firm grasp of me, and then slowly slides her pretty brown hands down the length of my staff. I need my dick out of these boxer briefs. Urgently. So I'm going to pause here because this is getting pretty steamy and I did not give you guys any warning about what was coming. So future reference, some of these excerpts might be steamy and I thought you might like that little bit of interaction with Van and Jodie. Some of my favorite supporting characters from the book I wanted to talk about. Ido, the bartender, Jodie's first friend when she comes to Italy. Not inspired off of anyone in particular. He was just a character that popped into my head that I happened to like. I also liked Anna. She does not really feature as heavily in the other books, but I think that Anna had kind of a more complicated relationship with Van, and so I focused on that in this book. And then we have Papadoukas, and he is going to feature more in the other books. And then Enzo, Eddie, Zara, all going to come into the future books. The happily ever after ending in this book was a bit of a cliffhanger. We learned that something tragic has happened to Zara again, but for the night, Van chooses to stay with Jodie and go deal with it in the morning. This was not my most cliffhangeriest, not a word, I know that, but it was not the most cliffy of cliffhangers, let's say. But I do like that I gave them a sweet moment together, and I also really wanted Van to pick Jodie. I just wanted him to choose her, especially because in the beginning he did not choose her, Cass chose her, and there was that resistance. I really wanted that final moment to be Van chooses Jodie, and that is the end. So that brings us to our deep dive of Forced to Surrogate. We're going to get into some other details towards the end because I'm going to just split up talking about certain parts of the books all together at the end of the video, like the pets, the setting, and that sort of thing. So hopefully you can stick with me. I know this is probably getting long, but you can watch bits and pieces and watch it anytime. I just want to have a comprehensive take on the entire series that someone who's read the books can come and watch, or if you haven't read the books and you're the type of person who likes spoilers, there are people like that, you can come and get the tea. So the second book, hi Priscilla, thanks for joining, and hi to everyone else who joined during the reading. So I'm holding up the wrong book. So this is why we live stream, so we have our fails on camera. So this is the second book, Forced to Marry. And again, there will be spoilers in discussing Forced to Marry. If you don't want to see any or hear any of these spoilers, now is the time to quit watching the video. If you do want a spoiler-filled deep dive on everything I can think of to talk about in Forced to Marry, now is your time. This is my book where I said, I knew from the very beginning that I wanted Enzo to be messed up in this way. Hi Rhonda, thank you for joining. So the two characters in this book are Grace West. You may recognize that last name as being related to Tisha West of the Greek Mafia Brotherhood series. And there is a little Easter egg about Tisha and Lou in this book that I won't spoil, even though there will be some spoilers. So I had a vision in mind for Enzo. I wanted Enzo to be selfish. And that is the type of person I wanted him to be. I wanted him to go after what he wanted without really a concern for anyone else except the woman that he wanted. I wanted that obsessiveness. I wanted him to be dark and obsessive and to also be very romantic. Enzo is the type of person where he goes through all of this. He doesn't even know Grace yet. It's about his fantasy. He's imaginative. He's mysterious. Enzo is all of these dark things. And I think Enzo is my bae. Out of the 3 books, Enzo is for me. I loved him a lot and I loved writing him and I love that he was crazy AF. So Enzo is in love with Grace and her boyfriend is in the Albanian mob and she doesn't know. She just thinks he's Albanian. She is hiding out in Italy for her own reasons, which get revealed throughout the book. But Enzo notices that his tenant is hiding someone in the Albanian mob, and he's also extremely attracted to her and wants a chance with her. So what does Enzo decide to do? He decides to kill her boyfriend, to stage a murder, and then to take Grace under his protection from the murderer who has killed her boyfriend. So this obviously requires a fair amount of deception, and at this point, Enzo quickly coerces Grace into accepting his hand in marriage in exchange for that protection that he is promising her. So she does it because she's scared. She's not from this place. She needs that protection. And Grace has a lot of issues from her past that essentially push her to go along with what Enzo wants. Now, once Enzo has what he wants from Grace and she is his wife, he confesses to her what he did. He's like, I killed him. And she, of course, is completely devastated and confused because she has been romanced and treated well by this man, but he is obviously, for lack of a better word, he is crazy and sexy, and those two things are conflicting in her heart and mind. Enzo has his ways of changing her mind. Of course, he has other good reasons for having killed her ex-boyfriend, although mainly it's because he wanted her. And at that point, she kind of has these conflicting emotions flaring up and she's not sure what to do. Van, on the other hand, is furious because Enzo acted out of turn and he sends Enzo on various assignments far away from Grace. Now, at some point when all this is going on, Grace eventually, at one point when she's reunited with Enzo, hi Bookaholic 88, she essentially confesses to him about her past, what she is running away from in America, and it's kind of a bad time because Van is about to send Enzo to America to look after some mess with Eddie, who they sent to America at the end of book 1, and he also wants Grace to go, but because of what's happened with her family and her ex in America, Grace does not want to go and she essentially breaks up with Enzo. However, she comes to regret this and she goes back to get him and she tries to work on her fears and understand Enzo is by her side. However, the past will never stay buried, and this is the truth for Grace's traumatic past as well. And her traumatic past comes back to haunt her and to kidnap her and honestly to attempt to kill her. So at this point, Grace must use lessons she has learned from being a part of a mob family for this amount of time to try to escape, and eventually Enzo, of course, is not going to leave his girl in the hands of a maniac, and he comes to take care of business. At this point, Grace and Enzo are preparing to have a child. They return to America, and I believe they have twins, Renato and Onika. And again, these names were picked by my lovely patrons, so thank you to my patrons for that. This book had an insane cliffhanger, which honestly pissed a lot of people off because I did not reverse the cliffhanger in any way, shape, or form going into book 3, and we'll talk about that in a second. I decided to do that because of the unfortunate realities of the mob and this being a dark romance. Dark things were happening and some characters were not up for a redemption arc and were instead up for an execution arc, and that is just the way the cookie crumbled. So let's talk about some of the tropes in the second book and the supporting characters, and then I can get into a little sample because that's my favorite part. So supporting characters, we had the Albanian ex-boyfriend Uksan. I based that character off of what I would call my gym nemesis, who is not male, nor named Uxan. But yes, that is who that character is based off of. Sometimes there are people out there, and how I cope with what I believe to be incidents of racism is I just let it roll off my back and I put a character into a book, and one way or another, they end up on the wrong side of a mafioso's gun. And so that character is based off of very rude individual. Van and Jody, of course, are back into this book, and we've already talked about them at length. Jody was my red dreadlocks queen, and I went into the reviews on that book. We're going to pause and go way off topic for a second. And somebody complained that, quote, Jody was fat and ugly because I described her as curvier, and also at some points she was insecure about her appearance. I don't know if any of you have been alive for a certain amount of time, but it's very common for women and men to occasionally feel insecure about their appearance, no matter how they look. So don't read into it. It's the human experience. If you are upset that the character is plus size, you can go read a book with a petite character, of which I have plenty. It's honestly somewhat balanced. So moving on from that. So this book was an older woman, younger man book. Grace is older than Enzo. I really wanted that because I wanted Enzo to have that fire. And there's something about the younger man pursuing an older woman where it's like she's honestly tired of the BS in society, and he is bringing that energy and zest and passion for love that perhaps she has lost along the way of dealing with men. And that's the dynamic I wanted for Enzo and Grace, which will hopefully make some sense if you've read the book already. And of course, this was an enemies to lovers book, and I cannot tell if it's arranged marriage or fake relationship. It's an arranged marriage under false pretenses. It's a trick. It's a trap marriage. He trapped her. If you can tell me the difference between whether you think it's arranged marriage or fake relationship, I think it might be neither. But either way, Enzo's relationship with Grace was somewhere between a fake relationship and an arranged marriage. Now, Shane, the ex, was honestly a mix of various true crime things that I've listened to lately about cases with domestic violence. I do write characters that have experienced domestic violence, like in this book, because again, this is a very common part of the human experience, and every character has something different to deal with. I wanted to write a character that was healing and had moved on and could conquer some of her past of child abuse and domestic violence. And so, of course, the abusive character was based on a mix of different people who were like that I kind of took little details and made a character of my own. And then we have John. I'm writing down John. I'm like, who is John? I'm writing about John right now. That's why I wrote John in my notes. And we also introduced in this book John Vicari, whose book Long Island Butcher is going to come out December 1st. So if you are into the very next Mafia romance series, there's going to be some teasers in this series that will lead up to events in the future books. But if you don't read this series, you can still read the other one. They're all going to be independent, but if you're the type of reader who likes to look for these Easter eggs and connections, there will definitely be some connections coming up soon. So with that being said, I'm finally done giving out 98% of the details I wanted to give out in this book. I will talk about, that's what I will do. I will read you a little segment of this book, and I think it's around 4 pages. And this part I don't think is extremely dirty, but warning, it could be dirty because this is not a discreet book. It's called Forced to Marry. It's a dark romance, so I'm sorry in advance. All right. So we're in the scene with Grace and Enzo, and I believe this is Grace's perspective. We're in the middle of the chapter. I'm just gonna dive right in. That man can keep a fucking secret, that's for sure. Maybe that's why I don't mind telling him mine. I hate that these aren't my only secrets anymore. I hate that my life has become so much more fucked up than it was in that trailer park. When did it start? Enzo says. When did your brother hurt you? I bite my lower lip nervously. What matters is that it stopped. Not to me, Enzo says. Is your brother still alive? I nod slowly, although I regret doing it as soon as I nod. I don't know what this crazy-ass man could do with information about my family. I throw him off the trail of personal inquiries by telling him my story. It's so long ago that sometimes I can pretend it happened to someone else, at least when I'm not having nightmares. I was only 12 when it started, I continue. I didn't know what was happening exactly. I didn't understand what he wanted from me or why men would want to hurt me. But they did, for a long, long time. I got out of it, though. I don't do that shit anymore. Is that why you're here? To escape your past? I can answer him honestly without telling the truth, and something tells me it's a mistake to lie to this man, but I can't help it. I'm too scared to tell him the truth either. I was too scared to tell Oksana, partly to escape my past. I'm in Italy to escape a lot of shit, but I don't want Lorenzo to think I'm a fuck-up. I don't want him to see me as some poor-ass trailer park child prostitute. I'm more than that. I clawed my way out of hell to be more than that. I did shit that I'm not proud of, but I did shit that I'm proud of too. I'm not just a sad story, I tell him. I got out of the trailer park when I was 20. I went to college. I dragged my sister to New York and tried to get her clean. Nothing could keep that girl away from crack. Not me, not jail, not rehab, not anybody. I've never been to college, Lorenzo says calmly, so there you go, more educated than me. He smiles warmly, and for the first time since I've been with him, I feel something inside me. It's not just his feelings for me, which he's never hidden. I feel something besides guilt over Oksana. I feel something besides shame. He doesn't judge me. He doesn't loathe me for my past, and he doesn't treat me like I'm delicate and incapable either. It's nice to be appreciated, you know? He asked me what I studied, and I have to spend 5 minutes explaining Africana studies to an Italian man who doesn't know America has 50 states. I got a scholarship, and I should have gone all the way for my PhD. I had to run before I became Dr. West. That part of my life is over now. What happened after college? Lorenzo asks. Did you ever go back to your family? No, I tell him. I don't have a home. I have people I grew up with, people I still love, but I can't ever go back there. My mom still lives with David, in and out of rehab, but life will never be the same without Amara. Your sister? Yeah, I whisper, gazing down into the bubbles. I want to sink into them. I want to disappear beneath the water and forget every fucking thing that happened in Mississippi. The years of drug abuse in my house, the filth everywhere, the damned roaches. I worked my ass off thinking I could escape, and in the end, I had to run away from everything I built and accept the truth. Women like me, who grew up mired deep in shit, can't really ever get out. Our lives are like a black hole. You might think you're escaping, but the gravitational pull of fucked up poverty will always pull you back in. But you're here now, safe, in Italy. Broke in Italy, I tell him, and married to a killer. Lorenzo grins. I'm not as bad as all that, am I? You killed Oksana and you don't seem sorry about it. Enzo shrugs and keeps going to town on that wine of his. How the hell can one man suck back so much damned wine? He's not the only man I've killed. If I can keep him talking, I can keep him away from what he wants. Sex. I know enough about men to know when they want it, and Enzo wants me badly. I don't even know why. I want to keep away from him, but I can't keep him from moving across the tub, paddling so he's facing me in the gigantic, luxurious marble tub. Our lips are so close that I can smell his breath, mint tinged with red wine. I hate that I want to kiss him just for being a good listener, just for not treating me any differently because he knows some bullshit about my past. Okay, so we're going to take a little pause here, and that is Forced to Marry. So we talked some spoilers, we talked characters. Again, I'm going to get into the pets and setting and a little more when we're all done. But that was book 2. And the third book, I would say, was the most anticipated book of the series, but definitely the most controversial. And that was Forced to Submit. And just a reminder that there will be spoilers. So if you have not read this story yet, run away because I'm going to be talking about it and giving spoilers. So the couple in this book are Zara and Matteo. Matteo is the older brother who kind of dipped away for the majority of the series, and he is back with Zara in his custody and seeking answers about what happened to his son. And Zara is honestly just looking for some safety in life because a lot of messed up shit happened to her after her boyfriend sold her. I can't believe you guys are so mad at me for killing Eddie when her boyfriend sold her, y'all. Like, I thought Eddie was evil enough to kill. If you are upset that I killed Eddie, please comment down below. I accept it. I understand. I am actually taking it all in. So let me know if you are team kill Eddie or team Eddie should have had a redemption arc. I'm very curious to know. That was generally the premise of this book, which is what I just explained. And then my favorite part in this book, I love the ending. I love the ending of this book. Zara is just the character I want to always be bringing mess and drama to Matteo. No, Eddie was a problem, Visionaire Art says. Thank you. Honestly, I will say now, because this episode has spoilers, I plan on killing Eddie from the very beginning. He never stood a chance. I was always going to kill him. I did not know the way I was going to kill him, and how it ended up in book 3 honestly surprised me. That's just the way the book came out of my head. But I did know that Eddie was always going to die. So I'm sorry if you didn't want me to kill Eddie, but he was low-key doomed. But I'm kind of like, I always feel like I killed a wrong person. So if you don't like that I killed Eddie, for sure, let me know. I'd be curious to know about that. So I did not take very good notes on the plot of this book because I was like, it just came out. You can remember this. So I'm going to try it. You are going to see me remembering things without notes, which I'm sure will be very entertaining if you like people to stumble a lot. So, okay. So the cliffhanger at the end of book 2 was Matteo kill Eddie. And we're like, did he just kill his son? And then we go back in time to when Zara first ends up at Matteo's place, which happens temporally some way halfway through book 2. Okay, we're all in this together. So Zara shows up at Matteo's place, and his people got her in Albania. She's effing traumatized, and he has a list of every horrific thing that was done to her in captivity. And Zara has essentially been human trafficked. She was sold into sexual slavery. She was completely taken advantage of, and she has extremely chaotic trauma responses as a result. I actually don't talk about this very often, but I have a huge interest in psychology. My undergraduate degree is in neuroscience, and at times I like to dive into the psychology of certain things, and trauma being part of the human experience and being something that many people, but also many Black women experience, although obviously it's not limited to that group. And so because I write characters that are in that group, I just like to write a broad variety of human experiences. So Zara is extremely traumatized. She was in an abusive relationship. She's young, and she is one of those people who's young and naive. This is something that if you know people who've been through a lot of difficulty in their past, they can seem both young and old at the same time. They see themselves as very mature, but to adults can see how immature they really are. But they kind of feel like they can handle more than they should because they've been left to their own devices and left to support themselves if they have abusive parents. So honestly, I was in my feelings writing Zara. I was very attached to her. I was attached to her from the first book because I wanted to show kind of how she slowly descended into worse and worse situations with Eddie, where at first he was just kind of like an asshole to her and using her, and then he basically attempted to pimp her out. He really had a long-term plan of using her and degrading her, but she managed to get out, and she ends up at Matteo's castle. Now, Matteo is honestly the world's worst parent. I'll say it. I did not write Matteo as a good father, which hopefully was carried across in the fact that he literally, spoiler alert, I'm waiting for anyone who doesn't want the spoiler to leave. Spoiler alert, Matteo kills his own child. So he is not really what I would say is a good person. However, when he first takes Zara in, he's trying his damn best. Zara I wrote from book 1. You can read passages in book 1 if you are a fan of the series where I talk about Zara being like, this is book 2. Oh God. So I talk about Zara being otherworldly beautiful. Zara, in my opinion, had very dark skin. She wore her hair long and very done, and she had these big eyes that just captivated people. And I also made Zara very petite. That was just how she came to me. I really wanted her size to reflect just how cruel it was how Eddie treated her, because Zara is truly physically helpless. She is a young woman who's physically helpless, and she is stuck with Matteo, who is gigantic and 40 years old. So everyone, a lot of people, I'm always here. This is going to be my last mega age gap romance because I'm tired of making y'all mad. I know I keep doing it over and over again, so it's like, does she feel bad? I like the big age gap romances, and that's me, and so I do sometimes make the gap too gappy, and I'm going to stop doing that because I need to get a hold of myself here, okay? But they have a big age gap, and at first Zara essentially comes on to Matteo, but it's not from a good place. She just thinks that because he's a man, she has to sleep with him for him not to abuse her. And again, this is a trauma response. A lot of people who have been through traumatic situations act in ways that seem contradictory. I put in the work, y'all. I do just sit here and make stuff up. Actually, that is a lot of what I do, but I also research. So, and Zara's response was a trauma response. This is not making sense. And so we see here that Matteo, despite being a bad father, is able to summon up some love from his broken mafia heart for this truly helpless girl, and he tells her, like, I'm not doing that. And then she begs to sleep in his bed, and he is very uncomfortable because it's inappropriate, obviously, but she's just so small and cute and helpless that he says yes to her. And this whole book then goes through this back and forth. And then we get to the cliffhanger at the end of book 2, where he kills Eddie once he finds him, because he honestly just loves Zara, and he cannot take that Eddie did this to him. Now, I added some stuff about Eddie's background, which again, I had also planned to do from the beginning, because like I said, I always planned for Eddie to die. So I feel like some readers like skimmed that section and then they were really mad, but Matteo never really raised Eddie, and there were some complex reasons for that. So check out the book and you'll see. I said spoilers, but I won't spoil everything. So then at this point, when Matteo kills Eddie, he can't handle what he done because it's obviously completely messed up. And so he decides to do what every man in the Mafia does when he faces emotional difficulties, because he is a book alpha and he is messed up and we are in love with him. So he gets drunk. So in his drunken state, he succumbs to his lust for Zara, and y'all, the sex scenes. This is why it's like I can't stop my problematic ass from writing these romances, because I feel like, yeah, you know what? I did go off in the sex scenes in these books. The way they weren't supposed to be together, but then they were together, it's something. So this is what happens between them, and then of course Matteo pushes her away. There's a back and forth between them. The brothers come and they're like, Matteo, she is 18. Like, or I think she's 19 in this book, actually. It's like, what are you doing? She's too young for you. He feels guilty. He sends Zara away to pursue her dream. They can't stand being away from each other. And we also have the Jody and Grace from books 1 and 2 come in to help move the romance along. Someone tricks someone else. Look at me trying to remember. And then in the end, they get back together and they eventually have a child and a wedding scene. So the wedding scene I really loved in this book. Zara adopts a bunch of goats. I really wanted her. Zara is just a love bug, and she's one of those people who her heart is too big. She would adopt every goat if she could, and I really wanted Zara to get a menagerie of animals into their lives, because she is going to always be in mess with Matteo. I envisioned him always having to stop her from going too far because she's a wild one. So that is the deal with them. And the tropes in this book, as I've already said, age gap, age gap, age gap, age gap, ex-boyfriend's dad, which is one thing, one way of looking at the world, a very dominant man. Matteo in the bedroom is something else. We should give him whiskey more often, and an impregnation romance. And again, some people are tired of the babies. I get it. But there are babies. And this baby is Salvatore. And that is the end of that. That's the end of that book. So I want to get into the supporting characters, and then we're going to read an excerpt. So some supporting characters in this book were basically all characters from the other books and a little more of the Vicari family, which will be in the Long Island series. And we also had here, I'm looking at this very quickly. Yes, and then the dog, which we'll get into after everything. So while I'm here, I'm going to read a little bit from this book, and then we're going to honestly finish up the video, hopefully very soon. And I hope this is an extremely complete video on the Amalfi Coast Brotherhood series, so I don't have to go back into it. However, before I read this, if you have any questions of any kind, please put them in the comments, DM me, whatever. Sorry, I just had a notification go off, which I really hate when that happens. So this is chapter 5, Sleeping with Matteo, and it's from Zara's perspective, and this is possibly my favorite scene between them in the book. And there's no sex in this part, I think. Matteo's a loud, heavy breather, and he falls asleep quickly. I feel better in his bed, but I still can't sleep. When I'm sure Matteo's snoring means he's deeply asleep, I wriggle close to him and wrap my arm around him. He's like a big, giant teddy bear. I know he told me not to do this, but if I don't hold someone, if I don't feel like there's someone big and strong to protect me, I won't be able to close my eyes. I need him tonight. I need him because he's the only person I've ever met who has looked at my messy, traumatized self in the eye and known exactly what I needed. He held me so tightly, like he would never let me go, and tonight, I don't want to let go of him. I know he's my ex-boyfriend's dad, but we're in a castle, and we're far away from anyone who could judge me, so I cling to Matteo's giant back and allow myself to drift to sleep. A firm voice rouses me from sleep several hours later. Zara, you are hooked on me, Matteo grunts. I need you to let go. I don't want to let go. I don't care what Matteo says. I throw my leg up around the giant hulk of a man who grunts like I've hit him in the kidney or something. I cling to his back tighter. I'm too sleepy to let go of my giant, warm teddy bear. I nuzzle my face against his back, too. Muscles. Very comfortable for resting your head, you know. Zara, this is incredibly inappropriate, Matteo says gruffly. No, I'm sleeping. Zara, I won't have a young woman such as yourself clinging to my body half naked when it could very well influence your reputation. Let go. My reputation? Does he have to be so old-fashioned? I groan and roll over. A sick knot winds in my stomach, and I pull the blankets over my head as I wake myself even more. Matteo's totally right. He's Eddie's dad. I shouldn't even be in his bed. I feel Matteo's weight shift, and he grunts. Fuck's sake. I peek out from beneath the blanket and struggle not to gasp. Holy shit. I throw the blanket over my head and pretend I don't notice. He's red-faced and obviously embarrassed about what's happening. A giant protrusion juts out from Matteo's pajama pants. It looks like he has a whole chicken sitting in his crotch. The bulge is that big. I can't believe he has a boner. I want to hold my breath or burrow into the sheets like a pet chihuahua. I'll be back, he grunts, and he stomps off towards his ensuite bathroom. I wrap my blanket around myself tightly and consider making a run for it. I take too long to decide, and Matteo emerges from the bathroom a few seconds later, cold water dripping down his face as he dabs it with a towel. You need clothes, he growls, and to return to your room. Matteo still looks handsome when he's angry, but he should consider an attitude adjustment if he doesn't want to die alone up here. I don't have to listen to his ass anyway. If he doesn't like me here, he can just send me away. I'm not going anywhere. Excuse me? I actually fell asleep last night. That hasn't happened in forever. Perhaps it was the way you stole all the blankets or inappropriately grabbed at me. I am twice your age, Zara. I'm Eddie's father, and I know you have been through hell, but I'm not looking to have sex with a little girl. I'm not a little girl, I snap at him. God, he's so fucking arrogant and full of himself. Matteo doesn't know what the hell I've been through, and he has no right to judge me, even if he did. And I'm not looking to have sex with someone with the personality of a grumpy grizzly bear. You shouldn't be having sex with anyone, Matteo snarls. You're only 18, and after what happened, sex should be the last thing on your mind. I don't need you to explain that to me, you arrogant psycho. Who the hell are you calling a psycho? I swear if I were your father, I would spank your ass so hard you'd scream. Wow, I see how Eddie ended up so fucked up. Matteo struts over to me and grabs my forearm. Hey, let go of me. You are getting out of here. Let go of me, you pig. Stop getting triggered because of your stupid-ass son. He probably learned all his bad behavior from you. Matteo drops my forearm and takes in a deep breath. He's shockingly calm when he speaks. Are you going to bother telling me what my son did to you, or will you keep insulting me? I'm going to bite you! Mateo tries to duck, but I clamp my teeth on his forearm. He screams and shakes me loose. We stand there glaring at each other, and I swear I'll never back down. I won't let Mateo get me trapped in the same cycle I was in before. And I will stop here. And I have no voice left. I am done, however, with the majority of the video today. So the last things I wanted to talk about were the dogs in the series. And I put pets in each series. The first book has 3 Cane Corsos, Bullet, Pyro, and Jaws. I did a lot of research into the types of dogs I wanted Van to have, and I wanted him to have mob boss dogs. I'm going to take a sip here. I wanted Enzo to have a black poodle, who my subscribers voted on the name for, and that is Ember. And Ember I gave to Enzo because she is high maintenance, and Enzo was a kind of dreamy, head in the clouds type of person. I saw him as having a high maintenance dog. And then Mateo has a thing for protecting the small and weak. And so I gave him a little toy dog, a Bolognese named Vittoria, who plays a role in the story. And in terms of the settings of these books I wanted to call to mind a similar setting from the Greek Mafia Brotherhood. We have the coastal village in Italy, and hopefully we get the sense of that Mediterranean Italian life really well in those stories. So if that's a vibe and aesthetic that you're really into, check it out, because the Long Island series coming soon is obviously going to be way, way different. So to quickly summarize, because I think I should almost be done here. This series is complete. You can get all of them free in KU, ebooks or hardcovers, and they are connected to my upcoming series, the Long Island Mafia Romance series, which will be here. Book 1 will be here October 27th. It's my very next book. I don't know if everyone has pre-ordered it yet. If you have not, check the link in my bio, or you can type in smarturl.it/Long Island Mafia 1, as in the number 1, and you can get a copy of the books. Hi, Miss Delika. I'm almost done with the video, but definitely stick around. I'm just listing off some notes of import right now. So that next book coming up is a dark second chance romance. It's really, really spicy. It's really good. I'm going to do a pre-launch party, which you should be able to save and set a reminder with on Instagram. And we will do like what we did for The Dirty Contract and talk about everything in that book without spoilers that may be necessary to know beforehand. But that entire series should be really exciting. I really look forward to dropping those books and sharing it beyond the few chapters I've shared on Patreon. To get the first chapter of that book free, you can go on my blog, JamilaJasperRomance.com/blog, and you can read hella free chapters, check out the books coming out, and pre-order the books coming out based on whether or not you like the first chapter. There's so much free reading on my blog and my website. If you have not checked it out yet, you absolutely have to do it. I love to send you guys free things, but if you don't go and check it out, I can't give you the free thing personally, so you'll have to visit the links to see. There are more chapters than what's on the blog on Patreon. So again, if you are not part of my Patreon crew, that's www.patreon.com/JamilaJasper, and that is also linked in my bio as well, so you can join. So I don't have much more to say than that. I have been here for almost an hour, and we have talked about, honestly, everything I can think of to talk about in the Amalfi Coast Brotherhood series. So I'm going to consider this series complete. Our next 2 live streams will be on October 23rd and October 27th, and both of these will be about Long Island Executioner, but the launch day one will hopefully be a lot different and more special. I will have a few things prepared that we can talk about, that we can get excited for the book together, and of course I will have my e-reader so we can discuss, so we can look at what happens when you pre-order and get it right to your Kindle. So those dates and times will be announced on Instagram, via email, and after the videos will be uploaded. So if you missed the live stream, it's honestly no big deal. Thank you so much for watching today. If there's anything in the video you're watching after, and it's not the live stream, you can feel free to comment. I love to read and reply to all your comments. I've been getting a lot of comments on YouTube uploading these, even with a small number of views, you guys are really like started getting into the conversation, and that's why I'm here to reach out to share with you about the books and to to show my enthusiasm that I am sitting here just as excited for the next release as you are. So again, I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to stay subscribed to everything so you get those notifications, and don't forget to pre-order that next Mafia romance book because you don't want to miss it. I promise you don't want to miss it. I think this series is going to be like cocoa bananas compared to the previous one. So definitely don't miss out. And I will see you guys in the next live stream. Thank you so much for coming. Bye.
She be calling on a Monday, wanna meet on Tuesday, asking me to fix me up real nice. She can wait until the weekend, she wants off the deep end, telling me to bring the stuff I like. I don't wanna let her down, so